I sit here now, and I was sitting here, not specifically in this chair, but I was sitting there as I read. I'm trying to think what day that was. Today's Saturday. I want to say that was Tuesday. So I was sitting there. I believe it was Tuesday. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when the news came out and the press conference was out in terms of Big Ben talking about this coming Monday possibly being his final home game, he was asked about that. And, when you read the comment on Twitter, or when you actually watch the video and him saying all signs point to this being my final home regular season game at Heintz Field, he was still keeping the perspective of, maybe the playoffs. I think it really, every Steeler fan, and even people who aren't Steeler fans and just respect greatness and respect everything Ben's done for the game, it just really hit. Like, it's crazy to think that this is it, man. And I wanted to come on here for this show today and just really kind of reminisce about his career and really everything he's done and he's accomplished, and really everything he's done, not just for the Steelers, but all the happiness he's brought us, man. And I'll also dive into a little bit later on, a little bit of maybe a future kind of thing. It's not going to be that kind of show. I'm going to save that more for the off season. But this isn't going to be too long of a show. But I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about his career and knowing that this is it, man. And I know I'm not starting this without, with an intro. I just kind of wanted to get into everything today. But even today, as I still think about it and going into Monday night, it's going to be really emotional, man. And I definitely would have liked to gone to the game this Monday. Prices are kind of skyrocketed. But also I have other stuff going on too and happening, and it just wasn't going to work. But really my perspective, and I say this for all Steeler fans out there, regardless of how this season ends, just enjoy these final two games with Ben, because you're never going to have him again as your quarterback. By the way, welcome back to In Hindsight, everybody. We're back here. I've been kind of busy. Things have been up and down. I've been having some personal things go on lately. And I'm doing what I can really to continue to make content and, get this podcast rolling and stuff like that. It hasn't been an easy holiday season, but I hope you guys had a great New Year's, a great Christmas. Sorry about that. But I'm trying what I can to stay up to date with the podcast, and as I usually like to, Monday, Tuesdays, and Friday, Saturdays be on here. But recently, it's kind of maybe been a once, 2 times a week kind of deal. But I do plan on being back or coming back on here Monday before the Monday night game and talking about other stuff. And there's some things NBA I want to get into and kind of get out there. We'll probably get back on here Tuesday as long as I don't work. So I'm trying to keep up with the flow of the podcast. Just sometimes, man, things get in the way. And if I was doing this as a full-time gig, obviously things would be different, clearly. But as I have another job and, as I work throughout the week, sometimes on the weekends, sometimes things get busy and then you add in personal stuff. Sometimes it's hard to kind of make room for these things, but I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning back into the show, and just taking the time out of your night, out of your evening, out of your day to listen to me for half an hour, sometimes later than that. So I thank each and every one of you for that. Like I said, hopefully you had a good holiday season for you guys. But that's pretty much what the show is going to be, man. It's just going to be talking about Big Ben's career, just kind of going over things, good memories, good moments. And you guys can let me know in the comments section, what were some of your favorite Big Ben memories, man, and moments of his and all that kind of stuff like that. And it's just crazy because I always dreaded the time. And as long as I've been a Steeler fan for, which has been for quite a while, quite a long time, there's times I would think about the day when he's going to retire. And it's just, it's crazy that it's here, it's here. So it's definitely going to be emotional for all Steeler fans Monday night, and I really hope we have a packed house there at Heintz, and I don't know if they're going to do some kind of honoring or tribute thing for Ben, but it's going to be really emotional for him too, and just what an unbelievable career he's had, and he's brought so many memories, a lot of happiness to this city, and 18 years worth of winning football. 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's been to 3 championships, 3 Super Bowls. You get what I mean. And the accolades go on. The list goes down. I'll go over that. But it still hasn't hit me that this is really it. And when you look at last season, coming back from that season-ending elbow injury, for all things considered, he had a pretty good season. I don't care what anybody says. You can say, if you can go into whatever metrics you want to get into in regards of why you think he wasn't very good in 2020. When you put in a perspective, the guy being 38 years old behind a terrible offensive line and coming back from that type of injury, I think all things considered, leading the team to 11-0, which is hard to do in of itself, I think it's an impressive feature to me, in my opinion. If we had fans last year, I would have said I would have liked to seen Ben go out that way simply because of the season he had coming back, got to the playoffs, even though, you lost in the first round to Cleveland. I would have said that was probably the time, but I actually wanted him to come back for one more season this year simply because I felt he deserved to go out with fans. I single-handedly felt that way, and that's why I wanted him to come back for one more year to be with that. And I felt like him going out with no fans and not being able to perform in front of all these people he's performed in front of for almost 2 decades, he deserved that. I don't care what you say. I really don't. But I kind of want to talk about some of my favorite Big Ben moments, memories. Now, I wasn't into football. Excuse me real quick. I wasn't into football personally. Like, basketball has always been my number one sport. I really gained an interest in basketball when I was really young. My mom also, she played too when she was young and, throughout her school days. And, she was a big reason too in regards to why I got into basketball. But I'd say probably around kindergarten is when I started like actually having an interest and actually having fun, shooting hoops and dribbling the ball and all that kind of stuff. A little goon. But then as I started getting into like early elementary school, I started playing, in an actual league and things like that for a little bit, and I transitioned into a different league. But anyway, basketball was always my number one sport, and to this day it is just a sport, not professional sport or anything like that. Just the game of basketball will always be my favorite sport, and I played for 11 years. There's a lot of times, or there's a lot of different things about it I miss, especially when, as I started getting a little bit older, once I started kind of hitting 4th grade and going into, getting older into elementary school, into middle school, and even early high school, I played with the same group of guys year round, and when you have that core of guys and you guys, you become friends and stuff like that, and we had a lot of fun, and we played competitively. It wasn't just recreational stuff. We played competitive basketball for years, man, all together, and was the same group, and you really grow a bond and you really grow chemistry over all that, and Sure, from time to time we'd have some different guys come in and stuff like that, but we always had that same kind of core of guys, of kids and stuff like that. And there's a lot of great memories, man, and even in regards of really what we all accomplished over the years was really fun. But that's, so that's what I'm saying. Basketball has always been my favorite sport itself. And so I really got into that into a young age. And then I also kind of got into baseball, not playing it, but just watching it and liking the sport and stuff like that. So football kind of came after that a little bit. And I started getting into football when I was probably about, I'd say 10 years old. So I don't know, that was around like 2008 or whenever that was. And so I didn't watch, I wasn't into football or watching football around the time Big Ben got drafted or, the first 3 years or so of his career. But I started watching him when he was, before he kind of won that second Super Bowl. And that's kind of when I started getting into football and, obviously getting that interest toward the Steelers and all that kind of stuff. So I've watched him for probably about 14, 15 years of his career, which is still a lot, and so he's the quarterback I grew up with, and it's, and the only quarterback I really watched, for the Steelers. Obviously, backups if they ever had to play, but, he's been our, the quarterback for, that long. And, it's just, as I sit and think about it, my favorite memories and moments of Big Ben, I think the number one that stands out to me in regards of favorite moments, and there's a lot of them, but it's got to be the Super Bowl pass to Santonio Holmes. I remember watching that game at home, and we had people over, and actually the people we had over were big Cardinals fans, and I was rooting for the Steelers. I was probably the only one rooting for the Steelers, and they were actually big Arizona Cardinal fans, and so I remember their reaction to the Santonio Holmes catch and watching it. I mean, absolutely crazy. So I would say that's probably my single favorite Big Ben like play or moment. But I would also say one that really kind of sticks out to me too. And it's not really like one of his big moments of his career, but I remember like the 2015, this one just always kind of stuck out to me. I remember the 2015 wildcard game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Big Ben got hurt at the end with a shoulder injury, and Landry Jones came in, and Landry Jones threw an interception, and this is toward the very end of the game. Cincinnati scored to take the lead, and Big Ben just sitting on the sideline, man, just straight face. He's got that grizzled beard. He's got a raincoat over him, just standing there. So then he comes back in. They show him take it off. He comes back in. And sure, the Steelers were very benefited that game because of Vontaze Burfict and Adam Jones and that disaster. But Big Ben still made the plays to get them at least up the field, and they won the game, and he got the heck out of there. That was just one that always kind of just stuck out to me. Another thing that really stood out to me too in regards, it wasn't just a singular moment, it was a game. But I believe it was, again, 2015. And Big Ben had, he missed about 4 games that year, but he had a few different injuries that season. And he had a foot injury. I believe that game, he had a foot injury. And he was available that game, but he wasn't starting. Landry Jones got the start, and Big Ben was the backup. And this was against Cleveland. Go figure. And Landry Jones, got a twisted ankle very early on in the game, and Ben had to come in, and Ben threw for freaking, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the Steelers just demolished him. And that was just something that was just absolutely incredible. But the thing with Big Ben, in regards of as long as I've watched football for, I mean, I've watched football for, again, like I said, I started kind of watching football and getting into it when I was, I don't know, around 9 or 10 years old, whatever age or whatever year that was. I can't remember right now. But watching football for, a really long time, there's never really been a quarterback in the sense of like Big Ben. Like Big Ben really throughout his time as a quarterback, especially during his prime, playing, going against the Mannings and Brady and Breeze and Rodgers, and then Ben, that was like year 5. And so, but in regards of like, just shedding tackles and extending the plays, man, and when you think a play's dead, he's going to get sacked or there's just nothing there, he would move around or shut off the sack, shut off the tackle, and extend that play and make that first down or throw that touchdown. I mean, it was just unbelievable stuff, and just stuff that you didn't really see from quarterbacks simply because of how big he was and just the plays that he made. And I think that was one of the things too that I, not just as a Steeler fan, but why I think it was really fun to watch him too, was in those moments where he wasn't, where if it was really anybody else, they'd be down for the sack or, it would be an incoming punt, but he wouldn't do that. And so he was just really fun to watch. It was like just backyard football Ben, man, and moving around, shedding things, just that nitty gritty, football player. And he'll always be that to me, even at this stage in his career, where he's not that player anymore and can't really move like that anymore and stuff like that. He'll always be that player to me. And I personally think Big Ben has always been one of the more underrated quarterbacks over like the last 15 years, because playing with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, and Big Ben was right there with them, a lot of those guys got the attention, and Big Ben, it's like, hey, he's still there. All 5 of these guys during that time clearly are, future Hall of Fame guys, and however you wanted to order them is up to you, but I always feel like Ben was kind of got the shaft in regards of when it would come to, quarterbacks and the praise and all that stuff like that. I think my favorite Ben moment this season, though, was when he beat Cleveland, and just seeing his reaction after that win in Cleveland. And I mean, we all know he was the most winningest quarterback in that stadium for years and years, and just seeing him win that game in Cleveland was just so fitting, and they play him again Monday night. I'd bet the house on them to win that game. But just seeing his raw emotion from that win, and it was just the icing on the cake. And it was like, started off as their daddy, and he's going to end that way, man. And so that was just probably my favorite Ben moment this season. And Ben also had some good moments, too, in regards to games. I mean, he's had his up and downs this season, but somebody who's 39 years old and just behind an offensive line that got worse than 2020, I don't care who you put back there as quarterback. You can put Aaron, you can put Tom back there. They're not going to have the success that they've had. And it just, it sucks that regardless of how this season ends, playoffs or not, it sucks that Big Ben has kind of had to endure that stuff, and wanting to kind of finish on a high note, and simply just because of guys who are bums and guys who just don't even respect their quarterback. When he's down, they don't even go to pick him up. These freaking bums on the offensive line. It's just sad. It's just sad. Right when they snap the ball, the dude's already getting 2 people right in his face. So, but he's made the best of it, man, and he hasn't complained this season. You know what I mean? Like he's not going out, and he's still going out with class. And I've just really this season, even going in the season, I just kind of wanted to sit back and enjoy it, regardless of how good or how bad they were. And people can put all the blame on Ben this season. That's just kind of the typical thing to do. And I honestly think it's a cop-out and a casual thing. I don't think Big Ben's been the number one problem for them. Anyone who thinks so, I honestly think you're an idiot. And you're just kind of you're just a casual fan. I honestly think Big Ben's honestly been one of the least of their problems. I mean, sure, like, he's had his up and downs this season. And with really what he can do this stage in career, I mean, sure, like, there's a point that kind of holds things back, absolutely, but you give him decent guys in front of him that can give him some time. That's a whole nother story. But just really just want to celebrate the career of his. Getting drafted in 2004, winning a Super Bowl in his second season, going 15-1 as a starter, winning Rookie of the Year, and just really not transforming the position, but just being really throughout his tenure, really just being a quarterback that the NFL didn't have. And like I said, that it goes back to just his backyard play style and physicality and his toughness. And to be honest with you, he's probably the toughest quarterback I've watched. The amount of hits this guy would take, and I remember the one game, I think it was against the Ravens, where his nose was dislocated. All the injuries he would play through, man. And sure, like you can say, I mean, absolutely, like other quarterbacks in regards of, playing through stuff, like Matthew Stafford's a guy that you can say too, but really just early on in his career, just all the brutal hits, man. I mean, he had some of the worst offensive lines throughout early on in his career. Even in the Super Bowl run in 2008, he had the worst offensive line in the NFL, and I believe he was the most sacked quarterback that year, with being sacked over 50 times. So it's just one of those things that really just kind of stuck out to me, not just as a Steeler fan, but just as a fan of watching football, a fan of, things like that stick out in regards of his kind of play style that kind of sets him apart from other people. That was just really fun to watch. And, with the current way the NFL is in terms of, player safety, in terms of, them wanting to keep their quarterbacks safe, I don't really think it's going to be something we really see again. So I just really like to reminisce on those things and just his moments, man. And I mean, other moments too. The Green Bay Packers game, I believe, what year was that? 2009. The great pass to Mike Wallace in the end zone, where with the final seconds of the game, just absolutely beautiful. He's had crazy games. If you guys remember the Dallas game where he hit Heath Miller and just shedding guys, jumping over guys, and made that play. I mean, I can go on and on. But when I just sit back and just think of other Big Ben moments, man, like 2018, when I was there Thursday night when they wore Color Rush, I mean, that was a great Big Ben moment there. Just lit him up, 50-point bomb on him. I remember 2014 season when he threw back-to-back six touchdown games. One was for over 500 yards against the Colts. The next game was against Baltimore. Just absolutely incredible. I mean, I can sit here and even take time to think about even more, but I don't want to keep lingering it on. But you guys get my point, and just even when I get off this podcast leading up to the Monday night game, and you'll just still sit back and think of things, man. And, he's just had an incredible career, and I want to go over his accomplishments real quick in terms of really what he's done. And so, as I said, he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's been to 3 Super Bowls. He's won the AFC North 8 times. He's 5th all-time in total career wins, 6th all-time in career postseason wins, 9th all-time in career win percentage, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time NFL passing leader, and he did tie one season. 5th all-time in passing yards, 8th all-time in passing touchdowns, 5th all-time in completions, 14th all-time in passer rating, 17th all-time in completion percentage, 3rd all-time in fourth quarter comebacks, which his fourth quarter stats this year are pretty insane. They honestly lead the NFL. 6th all-time in game-winning drives, most 500-yard games in the NFL with 3. He's tied for most perfect passing games, most touchdown passes in consecutive games with, I believe that's the 2014 season. One of 6 quarterbacks to beat all 31 other teams. Youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl, and he won the Rookie of the Year. Now, if that doesn't say that Big Ben is easily, at the least, a top 20 quarterback, I don't know what was. I personally think Big Ben's probably around that top 15 quarterback of all time tier. I've seen some people rank him a little bit higher. I've seen some people rank him a little bit lower, but nonetheless, he's an all-time great, an all-time legend And like I said, honestly, a quarterback that we'll honestly probably never see again in the NFL, simply of everything I just stated in terms of how the game is and the things you can or can't do anymore. You look back at everything he honestly endured from a physical standpoint. Look at the state of the NFL now. Forget about it. I was going to say something else too. What was I going to say? I can't remember what it was I was going to say. Oh yeah. So I personally think Big Ben's best season was the 2014 season. That was honestly a really fun year. Yes, they lost in the playoffs to the Ravens in the first round, but that offense, man, that was the start of the Killer Bees offense, and that was just such a fun time to watch. And so 2014, this was the year he did. I believe this was the year he did. I don't know if this was the season he tied with Drew Brees for passing yards, or this was the season where he led almost 5,000 passing yards with 4,952. He had a completion percentage of 61.1, 408 completions with 608 attempts. That's absolutely incredible. He was 32 that season. Was he 32 years old that season? Yeah, he was. He was 32 years old that season, but he threw 32 touchdowns and had a passer rating of 103.3, the second highest of his entire career. But that was just such a fun season to watch, man. That was the birth of the Killer Bees. And that whole era of the Killer Bees and them falling short of not winning Super Bowl, when you think about it, is crazy. And the talent they had. The offensive line was probably the best in the NFL from 2014 to 2018 between them and once Dallas kind of got going there. Le'Veon Bell, throughout that tenure, easily a top 3 running back. Antonio Brown, best wide receiver in the NFL, alongside Julio Jones. And then I really think the thing that held them back those seasons was how awful the defense was. 14, 15, 16, it got a little better in 17, and it was ass in 2018 still. And I really think because you can't really win, you can't be successful in playoff games, man, with defenses like that. And all the times Ben had to freaking bring this team back and have those fourth quarter drives, it was insane. And I can go back each year and even tell you guys who was on those defenses that season, and you would understand. But it still is crazy in regards of them falling short. They lost in the first round 2014. Just the Killer Bee era I'm talking about. 2015, they lost in the second round to Denver, who they almost beat, with a very injury-riddled team. 2016, they lost to New England in the AFC Championship. 2017, I still say Tomlin's worst loss of his career. 2017, them losing to the Jags in the divisional round. And then they missed the playoffs 2018. And then obviously, that was kind of the end of that era. But that was just such a fun offense and really could have just been a historical offense if guys, if Martavis Bryant was able to stay on the field and Le'Veon Bell, injuries and off the field problems, and obviously Antonio Brown lost his mind later on, it would have been absolutely historic. But still, it was still a really fun time and just a super fun offense to watch. And I really think that was the year where, obviously that was the year where they transitioned into that really offensive team, as they were really a heavily defensive team before that. So that was really kind of the birth of that. And I really think the birth of Big Ben in the sense of, not that he didn't have a can of an arm or would air the ball out, but I really think that was really the birth of Big Ben, really even just expanding his game even more in the sense of that type of passer. And so it was just really fun to watch, and I can go back all those years too and think of a lot of fun moments in regards of that. I mean, I remember the Cowboys game, and again, if you guys remember the Cowboys game in 2016, when that was a back-and-forth game, and Big Ben, with like 40-some seconds left, fake spiked the ball to Antonio Brown for a touchdown. That was, I honestly never personally saw that throughout as long as I've watched football for, and that was super cool. And then obviously the Steelers defense gave up the game-winning drive with 40 seconds left, so that's all you need to know about their defense that season. But that was another moment just thinking about throughout the Killer Bee era, man, and you can just think of multiple times, multiple moments, multiple games in regards of what they all did offensively, and it's just absolutely crazy. But reminiscing about Big Ben moments, I mean, there's so many of them. I could sit here for an hour or two and talk about them, but I don't want to keep the show lingering on. But I would definitely say in terms of my favorite moments or things in his career, definitely the Super Bowl, the Green Bay game. Like I said that wild card game, that was just something that really stuck out to me. His back-to-back 6 touchdown games. And there's other things too. I mean, in terms of plays he made that were really awesome. I mean, he's had like the one in the, I think it was the AFC Championship game in 2008 when the deep bomb to AB, or not, what year was that? That wasn't 08. AB wasn't in the season that year. That might have been, I think that was leading up to the Super Bowl against Green Bay. If I'm not mistaken on that, but I think you guys know what play I'm talking about. Just a huge bomb, bro. Huge bomb to AB, and I can just go back and look at games and just look at all the plays he's kind of made, but those are definitely ones at the top of my head I can think of that for when I started watching him and getting into football that have always kind of stuck out to me in some of the games I mentioned and stuff like that. But it's been really fun watching him for all these years, and it's been us Steeler fans, we've been spoiled, man. You look at teams across the NFL who have had such a hard time finding a franchise quarterback. And still to this day, like you look at Chicago, Detroit, Jacksonville, you know, you look at these teams, man, who, you know, yes, have had an awful time trying to find a franchise quarterback all these years, and still even haven't. But you also look at all these teams who have just been absolutely poverty for just years and years and years. You know, Cleveland, Detroit, Houston has had some playoff seasons, but like they haven't really had that stability. Jacksonville, the list can go on. And us as Steeler fans, we've been spoiled in terms of winning seasons and playoffs and even Super Bowl championships, and you know, having a guy who is going to be one of the all-time greats at quarterback for 18 seasons. And I think a lot of Steeler fans, even myself, like, you know, we're obviously going to miss him, and it's going to be really weird not having him. But I think when he's gone and, you know, we don't really have, if we don't really have certain success for a little bit, or, you know, who's ever our quarterback, you know, he's going to be missed, man. And I think when he's gone, you know, I think a lot of people will realize, like, how good they had it having him. But it sucks, you know, that it's reality. And going into the season, I mean, I think all of us kind of knew that this was probably going to be it. But there wasn't a definitive answer, but we kind of got that on, you know, early this week. So it's just, as you sit here and think about it, it's going to be emotional. It sucks that the time's come. But you can't play forever, and he's had an amazing career. One of the all-time greats, man. And it's going to be weird. It's going to be really weird. And growing up and with him, and even some of our rivalries, you know, especially against Baltimore, and, you know, that no longer being a thing, it's just crazy. And it's an end of an era, and, you know, we've transitioned into a new era of football pretty much, man. And, but I just kind of wanted to come on here and just talk about his accolades and just kind of celebrate his career and some of my favorite moments throughout his career, and just how fun it's been watching him play. I know this was more of kind of a serious podcast and not really this energetic kind of thing. It was just more kind of serious, straight to the point in terms of just wanting to talk about Ben. But it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird not having him, man. It's gonna be really weird, and we'll see really how that transition period is. And I'm going to transition real quick before we end this show. In terms of, I'm not going to go too far into it because I wanted this to kind of be about him, and this is stuff we can pick up going in the off season. Sorry. But seeing that this is his last year, I really think the most interesting thing is who's going to be the Steelers quarterback next season. And I've talked about this with, you know, a few friends. I've talked about this with people from work who are Steeler fans. I've seen people talk about it on social media. And who knows is the answer. Who knows? Me personally, if I had my choice, it would obviously be like an Aaron or a Russell, simply because the Steelers are not in a position to, that it's just going to be down years like this. They're not. Number one, the Steelers do not rebuild their team. If anything, when there's certain transition periods, they retool. They don't rebuild. They don't freaking tear it down. They don't do that. And we know the Steelers build their teams through the draft. And a lot of times when you're a stable franchise, you build through the draft. You don't just freaking spend all this money. But if I had my way, just me personally, not what I think they're going to do, if I had my way, going next season, I would love to see Aaron. I would love to see Russell Wilson, because guys like that are winners. Aaron's still playing the best football of his career at 38. Russell Wilson's 33. He still has time left, and he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, even though he's kind of had a down season this year, I guess. But that's me personally. And with the talent the Steelers have, from an offensive standpoint, from positional players to what they have defensively, yes, they're going to have to make some moves in terms of strengthening both sides of the ball, but this isn't a team where after Ben leaves, they're just going to be depleted and it's going to be a rebuilding session for years. No, not at all. The Steelers, if they play their cards right, they can still be a competitive team. So that's what I'm saying. They're not in a position to rebuild. They're not in one of those things, and they don't do that anyway. But the big concern, regardless who they bring in as quarterback, is their offensive line. We all know this. And if you're going to make a move for Russell Wilson, you're going to have to give up some draft capital. And that's why I don't see that happening, because the Steelers don't really like to do that. And there's some important holes they have to fill, and you can really do that through the draft with your early picks, right? Aaron, on the other hand, I don't believe they're going to have to trade for him. He has avoided year after this year. I think it would really come down to contract, to numbers, things like that. But the Steelers finally this offseason, every year the Steelers are against the cap. They always, whether they cut guys, they restructure guys, and they have to freaking find their way, find themselves money. This year, with Big Ben being off the books and some other guys being free agents, as of now, from last time I looked, about a week ago, they're sitting at about $44-45 million in cap. That's a lot to work with still. And I would like to see them personally use some of that money toward a lineman, whether it be a left tackle. There's a few names out there. There's a few names at center. And whichever direction you go that opposite direction in the draft, right? So if let's say you sign one of the veteran centers in free agency, you can look at left tackle in the draft, because there's going to be a plethora of offensive linemen to take from in the first round, and where the Steelers are going to draft, they're probably going to be between that 15 to probably 19, 20 range, depending how the season ends. So, yes, offensive line is the most important thing to establish in the offseason. We all know this. And so people who were saying, well, why would Aaron or Russell Wilson want to go there because of how bad the offensive line is? Well, I didn't realize it was a rule you can only add one offensive lineman every free agency. You expect the Steelers to go in the next season with the same offensive line? It's not going to happen. They're obviously going to make a couple moves to strengthen that side. Now, you can't just rebuild something in a year or two. That's really hard to do. But you have to expect the Steelers to obviously make some moves to get that offensive line better and stronger, from run blocking, pass protection, lead blocking, physicality, whatever it might be, because these guys are just atrocious to watch every single week. So it's definitely possible. You can't sit here and tell me it's impossible for an Aaron to come here or Russell to come here. Of course they're going to make a call. Is it likely compared to other scenarios? No, but it's still a possibility. Now, a couple other guys out there I've thrown out that they can do. Philly hasn't really been that committed to Jalen Hurts. Now, is this going to happen? Probably not, considering as well that they're in contention to fight for a playoff spot, but they haven't really been that committed to him for these 2 years they've had him for. So I was saying, well, if Philly still isn't committed to him in the offseason, maybe you make a call about him. He's young. He has potential. Not saying Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy for 10, 15 years here, but, you never know. Derek Carr, I don't really know about his contract situation. In terms of thinking of, other than Aaron or Russell Wilson, in terms of veteran quarterbacks that can come here and win games and keep them competitive, sure, I think Derek Carr is a guy that can do that. I don't think Derek Carr is a guy that's going to be your long-term answer. Of course not. Derek Carr is probably going to play for a few teams throughout his career. But he's still an above-average quarterback, and depending on what his quarterback, whatever his contract situation is, if it's something the Steelers want to try to do, considering the Raiders might go in a different direction, I don't know. But that's a possibility. That's just a name out there. Maybe for 1 or 2 years you have him. I don't know. I think he's an above-average quarterback. He has a good arm. He's not in the tiers of other guys, but I think he's, kind of in that maybe lower tier 2, upper tier 3 guy, and he could come in here and keep them competitive. Sure. Jimmy G, I think that's an absolute waste of time. I don't think Jimmy G's up there with some of these other guys that they can maybe make a call for. I think it really comes down to what they're going to give up, their contract situation. In terms of quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks to take the round. So like I said, Aaron, Russell, yes, those are possibilities, but it really comes down to a few different factors. Like I said, Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't mind him at all if Philly is still not really committed to him. Derek Carr, depending on the contract situation, he's an above-average quarterback. He can keep them competitive with the amount of talent the Steelers have. Derek Carr hasn't really had that. Jimmy G is a waste of time. Do I need to go further into that? Now, I've seen on Twitter some of these people who cover the Steelers or some fans, it's probably going to be Rudolph. I'll bet the house that Mason Rudolph is not going to be the starter next season. I don't really think the Steelers value Mason Rudolph a lot. I've never really heard much praise come for Rudolph in his 4th season. If the Steelers valued Rudolph in any way, why would it take them 4 years for him to become the starter? If they valued him or liked anything about him, why wouldn't they want him to get in there a little bit earlier? It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. I think that's a cop-out answer. I honestly think that's just a casual answer in terms of who their quarterback's going to be and not thinking outside the box here, not thinking about how the Steelers view him. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Kirk Cousins is owed way too much money, and that would be a waste of time. Even though Kirk Cousins has had a good season the last couple years, I don't see them throwing $35 million at him or whatever his contract is for this season. Not at all. He'll still be Minnesota's quarterback. Now, they could draft one. Kenny Pickett, I think, is probably the best quarterback in the draft class this year. It's not a strong quarterback class at all. I see 2 quarterbacks going in the first round, Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett. I don't see either one falling to the Steelers, number 1. Number 2, I don't think the Steelers are going to draft one right now. Now, there's some guys in the second round, Malik Willis, Sam Howell, not a fan of, Desmond Ridder, Carson Strong. Those are guys that could go in the second round that maybe they do something like Philly did and select a quarterback in the second round and try to see what they can get out of them. That's possible, sure. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I don't personally think, and I think a lot of fans agree, that this is really the quarterback to really invest your future. This isn't the quarterback class to invest your future in. It's not. It's not. The Steelers next season is not a throwaway season. The Steelers still have a lot of talent on the offense and on the defense where you hammer in the places you need to get stronger at. You bring in a guy that can keep you competitive until you kind of face that transition period and trying to find your next future quarterback. You can still win games, be competitive in the AFC North, and vie for playoffs. Absolutely. The Steelers are not going to rebuild. That's not the way it is. So that's going to be really interesting. I've seen people say Deshaun Watson, and here's the thing. Again, you have to give up draft capital, but do you really want to bring that in here? Do you really want to bring everything that's been going on back in here and that reputation and all that stuff? We've been through that already. That's kind of personally why I don't really care for that at all. But it'll be interesting. And I think this can be the most interesting offseason for the Steelers in a very, very long time. I'm trying to think maybe what year was like a very interesting offseason. I can't really remember because they're always up against the cap. But it's going to be interesting that we've had in a really long time. So I don't want to just drag on and go too much into that. We'll definitely talk about stuff like that into the offseason. But like I said, I wanted to come on here, just kind of celebrate Ben, talk about his accolades, what he's all accomplished, and just really what he's meant for the city. He's brought a lot of happiness, a lot of excitement to all of us every Sunday. And even what he does for the city and different foundations he's had, man. But just seeing his growth as a person, I think, seeing his development as a quarterback over the years. I mean, all-time legend. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. And it's just been a lot of fun. And it's been a joy and a pleasure to watch him every weekend, and us being able to have a guy like that for 18 years and lead this franchise, man. So who knows how long it's going to take for us to really find that next guy. We'll see what happens in the offseason, but who knows. But I'm going to enjoy Monday night and enjoy these last couple games with Big Ben, as I think every Steeler fan should have. Whether we make the playoffs or not, I don't know. But let's just enjoy it and enjoy this final ride. So wanted to come on here and talk about that. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments on your favorite Big Ben moments. You guys can even let me know who you might think might be the quarterback next season. I don't know. But it was kind of more of a celebration of his career, and that's what it's going to be Monday night at Heintz Field. So take care, guys. Have a good rest of your weekend. Let's enjoy these final 2 games with 7, and we'll see what happens. Here we go, Steelers. All right, guys, take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you Monday.